All right, let's get it. So before I came into the knowledge, I had this preconceived notion in my head regarding our people, and that no matter what movements we try to form, no matter what programs we try to start, no matter what ideologies we seem to concoct in our heads, as a whole, we can't seem to get our people on top. We can't seem to get our people in order. Even though there have been individual cases of success and prosperity among certain fragments of our people, as a collective, we just can't seem to get our shit together. The reason why we're, on the bottom spiritually, mentally, and physically, because, you know, I'm just going to say it, so-called black people are cursed. And these are curses from Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, because we refuse to hearken unto his word. We refuse to hearken unto his law, statutes, and commandments. A lot of our people, and the reason why they don't want to is because they've been trained, either through the Christian church, the Catholic church, and they've been trained in, thinking that the laws were done away with, or even if they're not in the Christian church or even in, certain religious sects, they, they're harkening on to Kemet, harkening on to Egypt, these New Age philosophies, so on and so forth. So this is what the Lord did to us. I'm going to start at Deuteronomy 28 and 28, because this is for our disobedience. The Most High shall smite you with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart, and you shall grope at noonday, as the blind gropes in darkness, and you shall not prosper in your ways, and you shall be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save you. You shall be wroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. You shall build a house, and shall not dwell therein. You shall plant a vineyard, and shall not gather the grapes thereof. And so this is going to the fact that, a lot of our people, we can't seem to bear the fruit of our creations. We can't bear the fruit of our intuition, because a lot of our people we're very intuitive, and this is the reason why the country is the way it is today. Like, we practically built this country. A lot of the food and a lot of the products and a lot of the materials that we use on a daily basis that we enjoy, they were made by so-called black people. All right, things like peanut butter, gas masks, even alcoholic beverages like even Jack Daniels, I think, uh, refrigerators, light bulbs, etc. Quiet as kept, they were made by so-called black people, but because we weren't doing it in righteousness, we weren't doing it under the guise of our power. I mean, how about Shimmy how Shai? A lot of our credits and a lot of our inventions, they were taken from us. We were discredited from our own inventions. The so-called white man, gets credit for the things that he didn't create. The things that we created, the so-called white man is getting credit for, because we refuse to be humble and we refuse to be grateful for what the Most High has given us. Verse 41: You shall beget sons and daughters, but you shall not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All your trees and fruit of your land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within you shall get up above you very high, and you shall come down very low. He shall lend to you, and you shall not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. I'm going to read verse 41 again. You shall beget sons and daughters, but you shall not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Even during the times of slavery, our families, were broken up into and, divided. Our mothers and our fathers and our children, they were sold apart from each other through, slave auctions. And, even to this day, our family units are being broken up in various ways through, ways of media manipulation, through the court systems, the TV, so on and so forth. Verse 42: All your trees and fruit of your land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within you shall get up above you very high, and you shall come down very low. He shall lend to you, and you shall not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. We have to get greenlit by the so-called white man to take out loans, to get a new car, even from buying a new house. And we're also subject to paying rent, taxes, and other miscellaneous payments. But, if you're looking for, a high-end job, I say 7 times out of 10, you're probably going to get rejected in favor of another so-called white person, even if you have the right credentials compared to him. Me personally, I don't find it as an act of being racist or a form of crazy, cruel, and unusual, treatment or anything. I just view it as them just showing preferential treatment. I mean, when you're in a position of power, you're going to make sure that your own people are taken care of first, compared to the others. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because if the roles were reversed and you'd be on top, I expect you to show your people a sense of higher regard. I expect you to compensate your own first compared to the others. All right. Not only do you have the so-called white man ruling over us, but you also have the other nations in the mix too. From the Asians to their nail salons and their hair salons to the East Indians and the Arabs with their gas stations and even the Hamites and even in their ventures. They find ways to infiltrate our communities, our so-called communities. Make money off of us while at the same time treating us like shit too. Verse 49. The Most High shall bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose tongue you shall not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. America carries a very cutthroat, and vile spirit. The spirits that this country exudes, the said spirits that this country exudes, are usually reflected by the people who rule it. In this case being, Esau Edom, the so-called white man. I mean, throughout his history, in this country, I mean, he's made it plain as day that he really doesn't give a fuck about you. He doesn't even care about his own people. I mean, if you look at some of the shit that he did to us 100 to 200 years ago, I mean, this dude, was hanging us. And after we died, this dude sold our body parts, our heads, our toes, our legs, and even our testicles. He sold them as antiques. And, it's rumored that he even ate some of us, too. I mean, you don't gotta look no further than that. I mean, even conventional history will tell you, like the Tuskegee experiments, Jim Crow, so on and so forth. And once again, he doesn't even treat his own people good neither. I mean, to this day, he's still kidnapping children and selling them to these rich oil tycoons and bankers and even celebrities and entertainers for sex, putting them under MK Ultra mind control, putting their victims through sex rituals, electroshock therapy, waterboarding, administering hallucinogenic drugs, so on and so forth. Esau, they've been given a spirit, of extreme ambition and drive, and they feel the need to go over the top in everything that they do. And they impose that spirit upon the rest of the populace at large. That's why a lot of Jakes are so damn vicious at one another. Esau pretty much trained Jake to be just like him. Through TV, most definitely hip hop. The woman and so on and so forth. Pretty much Esau trained Jake to kill Jake. Verse 52. And ye shall besiege you in all your gates until your high and fenced walls come down, wherein you trusted throughout all your land. And he shall besiege you in all your gates throughout all your land, which Yahweh your power has given you. And you shall eat the fruit of your own body, the flesh of your sons and of your daughters, which Yahweh your power has given you, in the siege and in the straitness wherewith your enemy shall distress you. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children, whom he shall eat, because he has nothing left of him in the siege. And the straightness wherewith your enemy shall distress you in all your gates, the tender and delicate woman among you, which will not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that comes out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things, secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith your enemy shall distress you in your gates. So these 5 verses right here are actually, I'm going to give you a historical context to them. They're actually in reference to the siege of Jerusalem, which happened in 70 AD. When the Romans ransacked Jerusalem, they broke into people's homes, stole their food, any other random items that they had, and especially the food. And because of that robbery, the whole land of Jerusalem, the whole city, it went into a famine. The famine was so bad, that a lot of our people, they ate each other. I'm gonna get some context for it. This is from one of the accounts of Flavius Josephus. So I'm gonna read it right here. It says the Roman campaign in Palestine had begun with an uprising by Jewish militants in the countryside in 66 AD. Roman troops under the command of Vespasian had been involved in a campaign against the militants in the countryside for some years before the siege on Jerusalem began. The Jewish religious community at Qumran was dislodged in 60 AD. The war soon converged on Jerusalem in the Passover season of 70 AD. As the Roman troops, now under the command of Vespasian's son Titus, closed in on Jerusalem, hundreds of thousands of Jews from the surrounding country sought refuge in Jerusalem within its walls. Josephus estimated the number of Jews in Jerusalem at the Passover season in 70 AD to have risen above 3 million. As the siege progressed, famine set in. Armed bandits soon formed the habit of going from house to house in search of food, breaking down doors, and confiscating food or anything of value for themselves. As the food scarcity intensified, conditions got worse, and order broke down completely in the besieged city as roving hordes of militants went totally berserk, looting, killing, and ransacking homes and confiscating all stores they could lay their hands on without caring about how their victims would survive. According to Josephus, and this is where verses 54 and 57 come in, according to Josephus, the mad dog behavior of the armed bandits caused great distress to ordinary people who began dying in great numbers in their homes and on the streets of starvation. In the midst of this hell was a certain woman, Mary, daughter of Eleazar of Bethzur, of distinguished and wealthy family upbringing. She had fled with other refugees from her country home in Jerusalem into the spring of 70 AD before the advance of Roman troops. Everyone knew that she was wealthy, so she became a favorite victim of looters and miscreants who soon stripped her of everything in her possession. In the process, she resisted vehemently, trying often to hide her purchases, for she had money to buy food with, but the looters kept the watch on her and would thoroughly ransack her home as soon as they believed she had acquired new stores, leaving nothing for her. She soon grew weary of resisting and acquiring food for the benefit of looters. Get this. In secret, she killed her suckling baby and roasted the flesh. The sweet odor of the roasted flesh attracted attention, and her tormentors were on her again, demanding that she give up her roast. Mary, by this time apparently out of her mind, in great distress, told them coolly that she had prepared a feast for them and reserved the best part for their enjoyment. She led them to where the half-eaten remains of her baby were covered up and revealed to them the horrible sight. Even men who had become hardened by the horrors of war were shocked and seized with fright at the sight of the roasted infant half consumed by its mother. And this is not just, the only testimony of it, according to Josephus. There were many, many cases of cannibalism, going on in Jerusalem during that time because, due to the extreme famine. All right, I'm going to continue down. Meanwhile, the war escalated, and survivors soon began having masses of dead bodies over the city walls into the valley below. So terrible was the sight of the trenches filled with bloated, oozing bodies that even the Roman commander Titus cried out at the sight, calling out to God to witness that it was not his doing. Those who tried to escape from the beleaguered city, were taken by the Roman soldiers, whipped and tortured, and then crucified alive before the walls of the city. Crucifixion beams sprang up one after the other into a forest of thousands of crucified bodies. Attacking Roman soldiers came upon a group of about 6,000 women and children who had sought refuge in a part of the outer temple ground. They simply set the cloister on fire and burned the 6,000 souls to death. Josephus estimated the number of Jewish dead at about 1.1 million by famine and by sword. The survivors over 17 years of age were sent as prisoners to labor camps in Egypt, and the children, about 90,000, were sold as slaves. So the siege was, a very, very, terrible time for our people, all right? And that's the clarification on those 5 verses, all right? Verse 60. Moreover, he will bring upon you all the diseases of Egypt, which you were afraid of, and they shall cleave unto you. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, then will Yahweh bring upon you until you be destroyed. Even today, a lot of our people suffer. A lot of our people rank first in every ailment, there is, in the medical field, like high blood pressure, diabetes, colon cancer. Even a lot of our people, suffer from sickle cell. I got family myself, relatives in my family, that have died, at a relatively young age, due to sickle cell and all that. So that's very prevalent among our people, all right? Verse 64, and Yahweh shall scatter you among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there you shall serve other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations you shall find no ease, neither shall the sole of your foot have rest. But Yahweh shall give you there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. And your life shall hang in doubt before you, and you shall fear day and night, and shall have no assurance of your life. I'm going to go back to 64. And Yahweh shall scatter you among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there you shall serve other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, even wood and stone. A lot of our people are caught up in the church system, and they think that the ways and the customs and traditions the church teach and the church adhere to, that they think that they're biblical, and really they're not. A lot of our people think that celebrating Easter and celebrating Christmas and rocking a Jesus piece is biblical, but really you're really commemorating pagan gods. I don't even think they realize it. I mean, when you rock a Jesus piece, a quote unquote Jesus piece with the cross, you're really commemorating Tammuz. Celebrating Easter, celebrating Lent, that's really in commemoration for Tammuz as well. Christmas, the Saturnalia, you're really celebrating, and you're really commemorating the god Saturn, all right, so on and so forth. Verse 68, and Yahweh shall bring you into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto you. You shall see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And if you go into that word buy, it means redeem, or save you. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of movements, that have been created, in the past 50 to 60 years. The civil rights movement, Black Lives Matter, a lot of the figures that were set up, by the powers that be, for our quote unquote salvation. Or really they've really set us back, as a people, 50 to 60 years in the future. Right? People like Malcolm X. I wouldn't even say Malcolm X. Martin Luther King. I could say Malcolm X. Marcus Garvey. So on and so forth. Those people. They really, in the grand scheme of things, even with all their efforts, they really haven't gotten our people really anywhere fruitful. You know what I mean?